Hello everyone, you're watching episode 151 of Let's Plant, and in the last episode we were working on this structure right here. This is what I call the Patreon Shrine. It is my tribute to all of my Patreon sponsors. And the little one is here. High five! So in the previous episode we were working on filling up the gaps, and we have lots of plants in the ground now. And I think that given enough time, they would fill up the place really well. Now also in that last episode, I was thinking about my plans of going vertical, and you gave me very interesting suggestions, some of which I really liked. The idea was to use more of this vertical real estate. There's lots of space here, and especially the pergola standing on top of the Patreon Shrine, there's a lot of space for me up above the plants. So the old design was basically everything was on the ground. We have everything on one level, and I think that by going vertical we create a lot more points of interest in this design. So one of the ideas I was toying around was making use of these beams. As you can see, there are 5 parallel beams parallel to the fence, and the great thing about this is that I could, if I want to, attach some hooks behind the beams, out of view, and from those hooks I could probably hang a few plants. Another idea that I've been entertaining was making use of this back portion here, maybe attach some ledges, or make some sort of trellis where I could hang other pots, or maybe even create gutters or some planters that would span the entire length, the entire width of these 2 beams. So you could imagine that we could have a curtain of green, just some trailing plants going over from, maybe you could even go as high as the very top here, or halfway, just to break the view of the wall, the fence, because as you can see it's quite plain. And having that curtain of green here would make things a bit more interesting. So for the hanging plants along the beams, it would be a rather straightforward task. All I need to do, as I mentioned earlier, is to attach hooks, and potted plants would be hanging from the hooks like so. And I could make them in such a way that maybe I could use some cord or rope to tie around under the lip and just hang them here. So you could imagine this going this way. And I guess the only thing I have to decide here is how far apart or how many hooks would be per beam. One of the considerations I have to make is that the spacing between plants, and if I crowd the top too much, that means that the plants down below would not be getting enough sunlight. So that's something I have to think about. And take note that the plants below are mostly echeveria. They need lots and lots of sunlight, which means that overcrowding might be an issue. But if you would look at it side on, you would see that there's quite a bit of space between the beams. So if you would imagine 2 plants, this space like this apart, maybe directly underneath the beams, then there's quite a bit of a gap between 2 plants, which means that even if I place them so packed tight together, there would still be enough sunlight to hit the plants underneath. So yeah, I think I could go crazy with my hangers. For purposes of cleanliness, I want the hooks to be hidden, which means that I have to affix the hooks behind the beams like this. But if I want to go crazy with the number of plants, then I would have to probably stagger the pots like this and use both sides of the beam. Yeah, this is interesting. But you have to remember that the pots would be hanging. They could be at different heights even. And we could cram as many as we want. But the problem with the hanging plants is that they would tend to swing. And as you can see right now, it's so windy that if I use a bunch of terracotta pots, they would eventually bump into each other and they would break. So maybe I would want to space them apart after all. On the other hand, if I used plastic planters or plastic pots, plastic hanging pots, they might work. I could place them close together that even if they bump into each other, they would not break or cause any damage. I guess the only thing I have to worry about is whether they would be flying off their hooks, especially in very windy days. And yeah, I guess we'll have to see. Now, as for our options for hanging plants, we have this hooks that you could attach to plastic pots. So imagine this is the pot, this is a generic pot. So just to be even more generic, I could show you one of the black pots like this one. And all you have to do is to use this plastic hook hanger. As you can see from the tip, it is a hook. And what we'll do is to attach this attachment here onto 3 different points on the pot. And now we have a hanging pot. A good alternative would be metal variants like this, and I think this would be more durable under the sun. So yeah, we might be able to find this in Bunnings or in other hardware supply centers or landscaping centers, but yeah, I don't think we would have a lot of difficulty finding these hooks. And as for the hooks themselves, I'm planning to go with this. These are cup hooks, so called because of the shape. They look like a cup, and they are open on one end, which means that there might be a problem with high winds where the pot would be swinging hard enough that they would fly off. But we'll have to see. With enough weight, this might not be a problem. So at this point, all I need to do is to figure out where I want the hooks to be, drill some pilot holes, then drive the hooks in. Let me just do a test run with one of the hanging plants. As you can see, it's currently swinging around. This might be a problem in high winds, so I guess I would have to look for better hooks, you know, something that would close up. Or I could just fashion myself something like that. I don't think it would be that hard to just tie something here. Worst case scenario, I could just use rope or cord and just tie them to an O-ring. That would work. So with something like this, I think I would like to have 5 plants. I think that would be enough. 2 more here, 2 more here, and we're good. I just have to divide the remaining space by 3, and that would give me an indication of where I should add the additional hooks. So from the midpoint all the way here, it's 72 centimeters. 72 divided by 3 is 24, so one would be around here. We just mark it out, and the other would be somewhere around here. Now I don't have them to be very exact, but something approximate, you know, just having equal distances more or less would be okay, because I do not want them to be so close, but at the same time I do not want them to be so far apart, because I want to have some sort of filling up happening, and having them with enough space in between might make it seem less of a jungle, especially if we're going to have a curtain at the back. With the positions of the hooks determined, I'm going to create pilot holes now. So we've got 3 hooks in now, and it seems like a straightforward process. So with that said, I'll be doing the rest of the holes and I'll be back. We're now halfway through attaching the hooks on these beams, and I found a more efficient way of doing this, and that's by using a wrench to turn the hooks, because doing it by hand can be quite tiring, especially if it requires a lot of wrist strength, and yeah, you might break your wrist that way. You just have to make sure not to twist it too hard, or you'll get a bent hook like this one. Now all of the hangers are in and I can choose to place this plant on any of the 5 positions. No, actually 20 positions, because I chose to add hooks to 4 of the beams. I'm not going to add hooks onto the last beam because it's too far back, and I'm going to use the far back for the curtain anyway, so it doesn't make sense to have any hanging there. So there's a couple more positions here and another here. Unfortunately, I do not have enough hangers or hanging pots to demonstrate the whole thing, so through the magic of video editing, let me whip up something for you. So that's it for the hangers. I would need to find more hooks or a way to hang my potted plants. I guess I'll have to spend a bit of time, probably tomorrow or in the weekend, just looking at Bunnings or eBay. There might be some solutions that I could use. Otherwise, there's always the good old rope or cord and just a metal hook or a metal ring, and I could just attach them into the hooks. But anyway, we've already figured out our hangers, and in the next episode we would have to plan out the curtain that's going to be at the far end of this pergola. We have a lot of suggestions on the previous video which I might take. So if I were you, make sure to subscribe to my channel, because in the next episode we're going to talk about our options for the curtain at the back. It might be planters, it might be a trellis, it might be just beams, horizontal beams attached to the posts. And yeah, we're going to discuss the pros and cons of each solution, and we will see which one would be the best fit for our case here. So I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.